same old crap, gang, all right? The same old crap. A problem that we haven't been able to solve. The politicians tell us they're going to do it. They haven't done squat. In 1986, there were over 70,000 arrests in New York City for drugs, all right? That's enough people to fill Yankee Stadium, not to mention the tidal wave of violence and death of countless men and women and children. Yet tonight, there are those among us who will call for the legalization of the really hard crap. Legalization, my ass. Hell no. Get rid of the drugs, drug dealers, drug sympathizers. Burn the bastards! Come on! Right down to brass tacks here, gang. They might as well not screw around tonight. It ain't gonna be funny by the time we get through. No prisoners tonight, all right? Let me start off at home base. An old antagonist of mine, John Flynn. How are you, John?
Very well, thank you.
Good to see you, pal. I hope you're not by the end of the evening. At the loudmouth, Joe Pariso. Joe, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
All right, sir. Joe is with the Essex County Sheriff's Office. 28 years a cop. 24 as a narco, into education, works with kids, is a graduate of the FBI School on Narcotics, against the legalization of any drugs. Now, on the other hand, John Smith Flynn has all the stats, and he feels we should legalize it, save money and reduce crime.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay.
Why?
Before you even start the fight, you have 3 strikes against you.
Don't give me that
First,
crap. Don't
this
give
is
me
a free
that crap.
country.
Huh?
If I walk in with a bottle of arsenic and
it's
I
a
set
free
it on a
country
table,
that if I walk in with a gun and blow your brains...
if I walk in with a bottle of arsenic, and I say to any of you, I say this is poison. Don't use it. This is poison. Don't use it. Don't use it. And I walk out of the room, and you're an adult, and you pick it up and you use it. I'm sorry, this is a free country, and there's no way to blame anybody except yourself.
So you're
And that's what has happened.
you're saying that the country should have no responsibility for protecting their citizens, even like you?
Yes, they should have a responsibility. Especially me should be protected.
Joe.
Secondly.
Joe, you've been a peace officer for 28 years, involved in alcohol and narcotics for the last 24. You kind of detect a little bit of a crackpot here, huh?
When I came here tonight, I kind of figured that we were going to have an intelligent discussion about legalizing or not legalizing drugs. When we start talking about putting a bottle of arsenic on the floor, it kind of leaves me. You know, you're talking about adults. What about the kids? What about the major health problem we have right now with the legal drugs we have on the street? What about the fact that we have at least 350,000 kids in the state of New Jersey right now that are in trouble with drugs? What about that fact?
Let me tell you
If you legalize drugs, what you're going to do is increase that usage, because with availability of drugs comes increased usage. And who are you going to have put the legal drug on the street, John? Who's going to do that? Big companies? That's wonderful. The next time we watch a ball game, when a guy hits a home run, he can hit a crack pipe and fly over the wall.
Your biggest problem is that the reason they're legal, the reason they've been legalized, the reason that booze is legal is because you couldn't stop it from coming into the country, and you couldn't stop it from being distributed.
Haven't been able to stop rape either. Shall we legalize rape?
Secondly, you have a big country here. 309 million people go across the border every year. You got 50,000 vessels coming in and out. You have thousands of illegal people coming across. You have thousands of ships. You have thousands of airplanes. You have 13 million tons of containerized goods coming in. You're not going to stop it coming in. When you come in,
you know how you're going to stop
you got 250 million people who say, I may want to use this. They don't say they want to use it. They say, I may want to use it. I may want to use it. And you're going to say, we're going to stop you. The hell you are.
You know how we're going to stop you? You know how we're going to stop them, Joe?
John.
We're going to I'm talking to Joe out there,
sorry.
all right? You know how we're going to stop them? We're going to stop them by giving them a mandatory 40 years in jail for those who bring it in, all right? For those sympathizers who think it should come in, and for the big drug dealers, burn them. Burn them.
You're not going to do it. It's a stupid idea.
We
It's
would
a stupid idea. You're not going to do it.
Too good an idea? You're
Why
gonna
talk
do it.
about
You're
stupid
gonna do it if
ideas?
these people say to do it. They're damn tired of their government telling them what they're going to do and not doing anything.
How many people die?
Let me
How
say
many
something.
people die from drugs, ingesting drugs? 3,600 a year. How many die from cigarettes? 350,000. How many die from alcohol? 100,000. You have 3,600 people as a base of people dying because they're ingesting drugs.
First of
How
all,
many
how
die
many
because
die
it's
from
illegal?
you're
cigarettes?
150.
How many die
from
because it's
cigarettes?
illegal?
How many die from
Many
cigarettes?
more.
How many
Many more.
die from cigarettes?
350,000. Wait.
351,000.
Should we take them away from you? Should we take them away from you?
Pardon me?
Should we ban tobacco?
Oh, I wish the hell you would.
Would you like us to ban
Wish the
tobacco?
hell you would. I smoke
Why
too
don't
many
you
of these
go after
stinking
that?
things.
You got 350,000 people dying. Why don't you go after that?
Can you prove that 350,000
I'm a
die from
biophysicist.
tobacco?
I'm a biophysicist.
You're a
man.
biophysicist,
I'm a
and
lot
you
closer
want
to
to
proving it.
legalize things like crack and
Absolutely.
cocaine.
Absolutely.
First of all, you know if you're I'm sure you're a biochemist if you say you are.
Biophysicist.
Biophysicist, whatever you are.
Yes.
You also know that in order to go after cigarettes and alcohol, it's ridiculous because you're never going to get them taken off of the market because there's too damn much of a lobby against it.
Right.
You also know, I hope you know, that we should deal with drugs at their place in society right now. We're trying to do that with cigarettes and alcohol. If you legalize the other drugs, you're only going to create a larger market, and it's going to be publicized greatly, and people are going to make a lot of dough on it. And after you
The
have it
government will
legalized,
make some money
after
for a
you
change.
legalize it, 10 years later, when you have a much larger major health problem in this country, you'll never get them taken off the market either. You want to do something about the stuff coming into this country? You got to use the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps. The other thing you've got to do is when you
cut
catch
it out?
these people, excuse me,
Will you
excuse me
cut
one
it out?
second.
Nonsense.
What you've got to
That's
do.
nonsense.
When do you
It
get
is
up to
not
the
nonsense.
mountain?
You're
When do you
nonsense.
get up
You're
to the
nonsense.
zipper, pal? Will
You're
you? You'll
talking
be up there.
nonsense.
Let me tell you what you got to do with these people that bring it in here. You got to do to them what they do to our people that go to their country and get locked up. That's what you got to do to them when they bring drugs
Let's
into
do
this
what they do
country.
in Malaysia. Let's do what they do in Malaysia. Let's kill. Let's execute everybody associated with drugs in this country.
That's
They
not a bad idea.
execute them.
It's not a bad idea.
Let's start with 840,000.
840,000
Let's
what?
kill them all.
840,000 what?
Let me tell you something.
840,000 what, John? Don't throw out a figure and not tell us what the 840,000.
840,000.
Of what?
These were drug-related arrests in 1986.
I'd like to ask you another thing. Of the 840,000 drug arrests in 1986, I'd like to know how many of those people have been arrested 6 times, because when they go in front of a judge, they walk out on a $150 bail. When they should stack them 5 on top of each other. Jails are not nice places, and they never will be nice places as long as they keep putting crooks in them.
Are
And
you
don't
a
ever
millionaire?
forget that.
That
Pardon
Do you
me?
want to
Sure
set
as
up your
hell.
own jail, or do you want all of us to set up all these jails?
I think that
No,
whatever
we
You
do,
don't
want to
have
pay,
a jail.
no,
should
we
do
want
it.
to pay all the medical bills for the junkies, all right? You think it's
You got
worse to put them in
3,600.
jail?
You got 3,600 of them dying every year. You got 250
Who
million people in
gives
this.
a We'll be right back. All right. Let me introduce some new guests who are joining us in this segment at Loudmouth number 2. Iman Siraj Wahaj. Good evening, Iman. How are you, sir? At home base with us is a gentleman by the name of, I believe you call yourself Otto Van Ruggen?
Von Ruggen.
Von Ruggen. That's it, Von Ruggen.
Von Helsing tonight.
Von Helsing tonight.
Yes,
Very
I've come
good.
to slay Dracula.
Very good. Let me talk to you, Otto baby. You wrote a letter to one of our producers, all right, saying that drugs are not the problem, that the problem is the laws. Now,
Right.
what the hell is it?
Well, for one thing, isn't it strange how the government and organized crime share the same interest in keeping drugs illegal? I mean, this fact alone should lead us to question the core of our drug policy in this country. I mean, Anytime drugs are maintained as being illegal and there's a profit to be made, remember Prohibition? There are always going to be violent crime related to drugs, okay?
All right, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. That makes very good sense. Also, try and remember that alcohol no longer is illegal, but 29% of the alcohol on shelves in bars in this country is still rut gut. All right?
Okay. So what would you do tomorrow if suddenly tobacco became illegal and the only source was black market and you had to pay $100 a pack? How many nicotine addicts would be arming themselves with guns out there to procure their pleasure and wreaking violence on their fellow citizens?
See, I think you're counting the American people as totally an addictive society, as totally a society that is without responsibility. I'm addicted to cigarettes myself. I can promise you, baby, if they were outlawed, I would be off them fast as hell. I'd love
that's
to.
you.
I'd love it.
That's
I
you.
think I am the average guy. I don't think I'm any smarter or any dumber.
Nicotine is more addictive than heroin. This is, that's right. That's right.
I know.
That's
I know.
right.
I know of very
It's harder
few,
to give up
I know of very
cigarettes than
few
heroin.
people who would commit a murder to get a cigarette.
That's all relative to the law. You change the law, and then we'll see how many nicotine addicts there are out there.
Oh, you see the nicotine addicts, but they're not going to go out and kill for it. They're not going to go out and rob
Because they're not
for
put in that position where they cannot obtain it. If you
wrong.
make it
That-
illegal...
Now, Otto, you know you're making that a little bit simplistic, all right? And all of us are smart enough to know that. Joe, let me go back to you. I mean, John. Why is it
Joe Flynn was funny, and you want me to be funny, and I'm not
nicotine
feeling
I'm
is
it.
going
Otto,
in my
backwards or
mind.
forwards, okay?
Why is it that you pablum pukers are always down when the going gets rough, all right? You back down. What's wrong with tougher laws, more police, and getting rid of drugs? What's the matter with that?
I wish it worked.
How
That's all.
could it work?
Doesn't work.
How
Won't
could it work, Joe?
It will work.
Won't work.
It will work if it's done fairly
Yeah,
and
here's a
consistently.
man who
You're
wants
not
to use the
seeing it.
military, right? You
Pardon
want to
me?
use the military, right?
Yeah, I want to use
So
the
let's say we
military.
spend $1
More
billion
drugs coming into this country. And by the way, while I'm on the subject, your argument is ridiculous. They're never going to take cigarettes or alcohol off the market. But let's talk
That's
about
right.
alcohol.
Big business.
The majority of the people in jail today for committing a violent crime were drinking when they committed a violent crime. You want to add more drugs so they can,
No,
they
we
can
wanna
commit more
educate
violent
people
crimes? You're
to
ridiculous.
safer use
The
of
name of the
drugs.
game is getting high, my friend.
Right.
That's the name of the game.
How many violent crimes are committed outside of the illegality of drugs because of drugs? Very, very few.
And how many more
Very,
will,
very
how
few.
many
Will you
more will
admit
be
it? Will
committed
you
when you
admit that?
legalize drugs,
Will
my
you
friend?
admit that?
If you're not
Let
going
me
to
ask
see
you
it,
Will
I'm
you
sure
admit
know
it?
that.
Your violent crimes related to drugs are because drugs are illegal.
Baloney.
That-
You're
Violent crimes
trying-
related to drugs are because people get whacked out of their
Oh,
mind.
whoa.
That's why
You're
violence-
trying to
have any- you
suppress
don't have any
a
evidence of that at
natural
all.
human
I
instinct. When
submit
kids
to you,
are
you don't know
young,
what you're talking about. You
You
haven't
don't
got
have
the
any
first
evidence.
Let me
idea
give
of what
you an
you're talking
example.
about.
Yeah, let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Here is the guru, all right, of legalizing cocaine, crack, and all that stuff. An example. Young lady in Washington, D.C., all right, junior at Mount Vernon College. Wanted to try crack. So she's living with her girlfriend. She takes a trip up to a crack den, all right, in Washington, D.C.
so she sold her soul.
Right.
We know this.
You know the story, huh?
Yeah, I heard it.
You heard the story.
Right.
So you know that it happened.
Yeah.
All right, let me tell you what she did.
Well, he doesn't
She had
care
100
about it either.
She had 120
He's
bucks on her,
talking
went up to the
anecdotal
crack
stories.
house,
Come on.
went up to the crack house, spent her 120 bucks, and she was with a friend of mine, all right? His mind was blown when he saw her go through the 120, borrowed 100 from him, went through that, excused herself, went home, picked up her girlfriend's car, sold it to the crack dealer for 500 bucks, smoked that, all right, then screwed every guy in the den, all right, and went home. Crack's really a neat
People
drug,
who
baby.
smoke...
How many
Oh.
people
Neat
die?
drug.
How many
Wait a minute.
deaths?
Wait a minute.
How many
Wait a minute. You
deaths?
just said how many people die from injecting crack? You don't even know what you're talking about.
Ingesting. Very few.
Ingesting.
How
you
many
mean
die?
Yeah, you're talking
How
about,
many die
you're
because
talking
they
about
go
swallowing it
into
or
lens bias?
smoking it. What are you talking
You know
about?
who dies? You know who dies? The kids in the ghetto die. You know why they die?
Kids in the
Because
suburbs die
the kids-
too.
I'm telling you why they die.
where
from
you live,
crack.
I'm
very
sure.
Very few die. The kids who are dying, and these are facts, okay, are Hispanics and blacks are dying from drugs, not because the ingestion of drugs kills them, or because they go out and kill somebody because they ingested drugs. They die because drugs are illegal, and there is an illegal criminality, and that's why they die.
Let me tell you something about somebody that sells a drug and kills somebody.
I mean, he really uses his brain, doesn't he?
Let's let's get back to talking about the military. You're talking
Yeah, I'd
about
like
my
to get
tax
back to
dollars.
talk about
Yeah.
the military.
Let's talk about
Your
I'd like
tax
to talk
dollars
about
right
it.
now are
You're
going for
hanging
public
out over
health
in Japan and
Okay.
over in
problems.
Germany.
What your
I'd
tax
like them to
dollars
hang
are
out
going
right
for,
over
my
here.
friend.
Let's say you're successful and you spend $1 billion to seal the borders. This is what you all want to do. You want to seal the borders
You know
against
better than that.
foreign
You're trying to
sources.
I'm not talking about
That's
sealing the borders.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I'm talking
sealing the
about
borders.
crop eradication. That's what you want. Crop eradication, right? That's the way. And once you're sealed, you're
Sure, you
safe.
wouldn't fight in it, pal.
Once you've sealed the foreign sources, you're safe, right? Just like Sigourney Weaver when she jettisons out of the mothership in her little shuttle, thinking
What is
she's
he
safe
doing?
from the
This guy is
aliens,
living in
right?
fantasy world.
Have you ever heard? Have you ever heard of designer drugs? I never hear anybody that's talking about using the military
world here tonight,
talk
Morton.
about designer drugs. You've been 28 years in Narcan. Have you ever encountered designer
I
drugs?
think this guy
That's
just
the
dropped
next
out of
step.
Duran.
Oh,
tell me when you think it's safe.
Tell me about designer drugs that started out in
Yeah.
California about 15
Right.
years ago, and they were
Right.
called something else. What the hell do you know about drugs 15 years ago?
So they set up clandestine laboratories. And you can
Clandestine,
You can
yeah.
right. You can produce.
He got a free dictionary
Yeah.
with that tie.
You can produce the world supply of heroin synthetically without any poppies for under $1,000, and you
What
can
was that
set the
again now? It's heroin
Okay.
for under $1,000?
Yeah,
The world supply.
Okay,
okay.
right.
For $1,000 bucks. And he's working
Here's
on it
what's
right
safe.
now.
You know, the
It's gonna
article
make a
was written in
fortune so he can buy a new
1985.
suit.
I only wish
One
you
of
had
those
it in that
stamps.
bag.
All right, drugs on the street. Is it getting better or worse? It's getting worse. Come on. All right, let's welcome our guests back. The Iman is still with us, and of course, Mr. Briso, who you have met, joining us at home base. Curtis Sliwa, founder and head of the Guardian Angel. Curtis, once again, okay, we've heard from the academic boobs their solution to a very real problem. Now, you Guardian Angels are on the streets every day. Can you imagine what the streets would be like if you legalized crack and heroin?
Well, you know, it's always, and I feel like I'm in a time warp, like this is the 60s, and next to me is Timothy Flip-Out Leary, Abby Zipbrain Hoffman, Hunter Bizarrehead Thompson. You know, they're perfect examples of what drugs did for us in the 60s. Smoke, dope, and hope. Well, now we're in the 80s. And the area that's been most devastated by drugs, all kinds of drugs, is the inner city. You never hear apostles of drugs as black or Hispanic people who've had to live with the death toll as it mounts, who've had to live with their sons and daughters becoming like mutants in Dawn of the Dead, possessed by a form of genocide that is destroying their community. No, rather, we Americans claim that we're a compassionate people. Let us assume, Mort, that 80% of the people could use all these forms of drugs as a leisure time occupation, that it didn't affect them. He's nodding his head up and down. What about the 20% who, because of their addiction to this, they crave it? They got no control of their bowel movements, their physical or mental faculties. They're laying out in the street. If we as a compassionate people in America would say, I don't need drugs to survive, this is a leisure activity, wouldn't you and every able, red-blooded American man or woman give up your leisure to save the 20% who've had to succumb and live a life of hell? I would. What about you?
But, Curtis, the problem, there is a problem, and Otto puts his finger on it. The laws aren't dealing with it properly. The laws are causing the problem more than the drug is. We're putting these people in jail. They're coming out on a $50 bail. They never get back in again. We're not loading, we're loading the prisons with whores and everything else, but we're not putting the real ones that belong in there.
But out of business.
Notice
Make it legal.
the people who are advocating legalization, who are making excuses for drug users, they're up in their intellectually ivory towers.
Sure.
When they have problems with drugs because they have bucks, where do they go? The Betty Ford Clinic, California. Dwight Gooden, Smithers Institute, New York, 6 weeks miracle cure. when you're poor and impoverished, like the people that the Imam in Bedford-Stuyvesant have to go through. There are no treatment programs. There is not enough money.
There ain't
and
no
they
Betty
lay
Ford.
banquets.
Ain't no Betty Ford treatment program. Iman, you're in Bedford-Stuyvesant all the time. What do you face? What do you see? What are your people trying to do?
On our block in Fulton Street, there were 15 drug houses. Each one of them were dealing with $10,000 a day.
On your block?
On a block. That's $150,000 one day, over $55 million a year on one block. And we see the devastation, and what we did, there are serious people out there, and we closed those crack houses down, and the people in this country have to get a new spirit, a spirit of fight back, and close every crack house in this country.
I agree. All right. I agree. How do we do that?
And also, I think it's a joke when people talk about legalizing drugs. I think that what we have to do is understand that not only the crime that comes with it, but the destruction of the minds of youngsters who would take drugs. And you legalize drugs and have 7-year-old children come and buy drugs and destroy their future. And we say, no, you're not going to destroy our future ever again.
You're not going to legalize it for children. You're going to have extra penalties. Extra penalties against
alcohol from 7-year-olds.
Right.
And Mark, and how we did it.
7-year-olds
How we
don't
did
drink
it.
alcohol.
How we did it. How we did it. We had a determination, like the drug dealers can come in our neighborhood and sell drugs. They can shoot us. They can kill us. The same determination they have to make a profit, we have the same determination to tell them, no, you can't sell drugs here. And we stand out there 24 hours a day and let the dealers know and let those who will come to buy drugs that you can't buy drugs in this neighborhood.
How are you stopping them? How are they not killing you? The police get killed. I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, 3 policemen killed because of drug deals.
I think the very fact is that we standing out there as a deterrent. And I'm not saying that we cannot die. We can die, but they can die too. If we're talking about a war on drugs, how come only the good people are dying? I'm saying that there's room for all of us to die. And we're not going out there except to protect ourselves. And I think that it would be a deterrent if all the people in all of the communities would stand up and say, no, you're not going to sell drugs in this neighborhood. I think we can stop it.
Are the police helping you in your neighborhood?
Yes, they are.
How great a force are the police in that neighborhood? Or frankly, are they scared to death too?
I think that the entire nation is afraid, and I think that what's happening in the police department is indicative of what's happening in the nation. However, in the 79th precinct in our locality, Bedford-Stuyvesant, they're making a very, very good effort, and there is the police presence there to some degree. And I'm saying that 30,000 law enforcement agents in this city is not enough. The people themselves have to work together jointly with the police department.
In other words, what you are saying is, let's not bulk up the police department. Let the people get together and start doing this and helping the police in that way.
Exactly.
Like the Curtis Sleewas of this country, like the Imams of this country, all right?
And like Hussein, like this brother here, Riaz Hussein, here's a man who is a new kind of politician. He's running for office in the 11th Congressional District in Brooklyn. This man is one of the inspirers to help us, to motivate us to fight against the drugs. And I think we need new politicians like him to help us to fight against these drugs.
Let me go to John Flynn. John, let me go to you.
Okay.
Correct me, John, if I'm wrong now.
Okay.
Your argument goes something like this. We should legalize drugs so that selling them won't be a crime. Right. Should we legalize murder, rape, and killing someone so that won't be a crime?
No, you're going to stop murder. You're going to stop murder when you legalize drugs. You had 387 kids. 387, he asked me the question, excuse me. 387 kids died in L.A. What, in the last 6 months? Drug turf wars. They happened to be blacks and Hispanics, so nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. Those kids won't die if we legalize drugs.
What about all the babies that are born addicted because their mothers or fathers are drug users? What do you mean stop that? If you legalize it, they're not going to be addicted.
Then you have some control when you legalize it.
Do you have the right to condemn a young child to an addiction of crack or heroin or another substance?
Of course
because
not.
You want to legalize that?
How the hell, John, do you stop it when you say legalize it?
Because then you can use the $1 billion instead of giving it to the military. You educate people and give them all.
That is so much idiocy. That is so much baloney.
And you have them stand outside the school.
I've heard you sociological engineers
stop
for
it
years
getting into the
talking
schools.
about education.
You stop it from
You've
going to
screwed
the
up
mothers.
education
You
in this
stop it
country
from
already.
going to the
You
kids.
screwed it up
You
because
don't
there's no
stand
education.
over
That's
people.
why you screwed it up. And you know it. We'll be back in just a second. Stand by. We'll be right back. Tell you what, I believe that American people inherently respect people who they know are trying to help them, who they know aren't filling their own pocketbooks. You take Curtis Sliwa and his guardian angels, all right? Yes, they've had deaths. Yes, they've had injuries, all right? Indeed, they would have had many more in the combatant areas in which you guys are always found, all right? As the Iman and his people who are working so hard to prevent drug proliferation of their neighborhoods, which is already there. Joe, earlier you mentioned in the last segment something regarding alcohol. There was something going between you and Flynn.
Yes, he said something before that I want to address, and before I do, for the individual behind me who very glibly said that cops are shooting themselves. In this instance, it's right. It's a very sad thing, and I have nothing but hate, or not hate, but sorrow for a person that is that idiot. He's an Amadon. In the Irish, that means an educated idiot, is probably what he is. I know you didn't say that. It was behind me. It was one of these compassionate non-fighters for their country that I've been hearing of. In the meantime, you said that kids aren't drinking alcohol.
That's 7.
You're full of baloney, John. The average age of the beginning drinker, in the state of New Jersey right now is 11 and a half years old. That's the average age of the beginning drinker. We're putting kids in for alcohol detox, for God's sakes, at 6 years old. At 7 years old.
Let's stop it.
We're trying to stop it.
How are you going to stop it?
But one way you're never going to stop it is to make it
Oh,
legal
really?
for kids.
You're not gonna
When we
be-
made it legal for
you're
them
not
at
gonna be
18,
able
they
to
killed
stop it?
themselves in bunches.
Why aren't you gonna be able
cannot
to stop
legalize
it?
drugs. Let me tell you something. 24 years in drugs alone, my friend. You don't know your backside from your front side when it comes to drugs. It's a shame you're even here talking.
You want to hear my experiences? You want to hear my experiences? They go back beyond yours, buddy.
And that goes for that alleged Christmas tree alongside you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what.
Listen, General,
General George
put
used to
your
smoke
men
it, too.
around the schools. Don't
Let
put
me
them on the
tell you
borders.
something,
Put
my
them around the
friend. Let me
schools.
tell you something.
Then you'll be
when
doing
you bury
something.
a nephew the way I did from an overdose of heroin, you can talk about it. When
Yeah.
you put the time on the street that I did, you can talk about it. Right now, you ought to feel sorry for yourself, because I sure
I
as hell
feel
do.
sorry for you if you want to put soldiers around the border. You're a nut.
Exactly what I want to do, all right? I
You're
don't
nuts.
want to steal the borders. I want to put enough men up there to help Iman, all right?
Absolutely.
To help him and to
Right.
put a mile radius around any school.
Around the school.
Men to keep those junk dealers out of there, all right?
Absolutely.
That's the way to help.
Absolutely.
Here's a gentleman, Dana Beard. You've been sitting in the audience listening
Dana
to
Beard.
crap. What is
Well, basically, I'm here because we're doing a parade. I know that we weren't supposed to talk about this,
You're
but
doing a parade?
we're for legal marijuana and against hard drugs. And I want to ask this man over here, if the only way to stop hard drugs was to concentrate enforcement, to take it off of marijuana and put it on crack, would you be willing to do that?
Marijuana is a drug. Marijuana kills. Marijuana addicts. And let me tell you something else about marijuana. I went through the
Hey,
marijuana
pal,
wars.
let me tell you something, pal. You open your mouth like that again, I'll yank your beard off.
Mort, I hear him talking about marijuana, the herb. Years ago, they used to get out in front of us and throw little balls of excrement at us, and he used to scream, marijuana's a plant. God gave us plants. He wouldn't give us anything bad for it. Why don't you smoke roses or orchids, for God's sake? You know why?
Well,
Because you wouldn't get
I know
high.
one thing.
Because you wouldn't get high.
Tobacco is radioactive and marijuana is
I
not.
don't use tobacco, my friend.
Well, he smokes it like a...
That's his business.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you one thing. Would you rather have the streets be full... If you had a choice right now, would you have the streets be full of crack or full of pot?
I don't want the streets full of anything. You're not going to get me into something like that.
Well-
I don't want them full of anything. I know what you're full of.
Under Reagan, we've decriminalized cocaine by recriminalizing marijuana and stuffing the prisons with marijuana people.
My heart bleeds
Now,
for
wait,
you.
wait.
Curtis, Curtis, jump in here.
But I heard these arguments in the 60s. They're just on the corner smoking their herb, their buds. They're not going to bother anybody. But all of a sudden, along came dust, amphetamines, Tulinol. They had to add to their wardrobe of options. Hey, you know, the other businessman's going to put me out of business. The same guy selling reefer now is selling crack. And anybody in the inner city will tell you that. It's an entree to these other drugs. Just look at this guy here and him as an example of why not to smoke pot.
Look at yourself. Look at yourself right in my mirror.
Yeah, the buds in the eye.
Curtis, all I can say is that the CIA and the Contras probably spoke to him.
He got that at his last cabinet meeting when they called him in because they had to talk to him.
No, John Kerry and the U.S. Senate.
Let's hear what Double O has to say.
Are you serious?
What about the fact that you are trying to suppress a natural human
All three
drive
of them.
similar to the sex drive, okay? Children, innocent children, when they're young, they spin themselves around and they lay down on the floor. Why? Because they want to alter their consciousness. They don't know that this is because of taking drugs.
Everybody here drinks alcohol.
This is a natural human drive. People don't want to be high all the time. They want to be able to alter their consciousness because this country, we are more in danger of being killed by our fellow Americans than by the Russians because of the war on drugs.
Maybe he ought to go to Russia. It's safer there for him.
There's 30 million potheads.
I want to save the country. I want to
Well,
walk
let's
the
hear what
streets.
Jane. Let me hear what Jane is. Wait a second, one at a time. I want Jana. Zip it for a minute. Now start. Go ahead, pal.
There's 30 million potheads. Only about 5 million crackheads, junkies, and everything. How are we ever going to deal with that if you have to take, just 1% of the potheads adds something like 1/3 to the total jail population in the United States.
Let me tell you something. I suggest everyone who wants decriminalized pot move to California, baby. You can carry an ounce of it with you.
It's decriminalized in New York.
Well, but fine. You got your ounce. Go backstage, light one up, have a ball. All right.
I'm trying to get it decrimmed here in New Jersey.
You're trying to get it done here in New Jersey.
Here and light one up.
Keep it
Be
away
very
from
careful,
me.
my friend.
Again, let us be students of history. We went through the 60s. We saw all these trendoids in movies playing guitars. Guys like Boy George, are they male, female, or frozen vegetable? And they're using drugs, right? And they're literally talking about that kind of lifestyle. Unfortunately, they live in the bizarre tutti-frutti world, not the real world. Our children are dying from it. Our children are being wasted from it. And we allow guys like this, purveyors of death, to come before our young children and talk about, it's not all that nasty. It won't lead to other drugs. I suggest we go to Phoenix House. I suggest we go to those clinics that are fighting against drugs and all those heroin users, cocaine users say,
You sit there saying, come on. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, John.
Let's look at history. Let's look at history.
You don't know what the hell's going on. We'll be back in a minute. I want to talk to them. There are some answers. Why the hell don't you come up with them? I'll tell you just by going into this audience during our segment break, there's still plenty of fight left in this audience and probably some good thoughts. I want to start with this gentleman. Please introduce your first name and whatever you have on your mind.
I'm Carlos Cortez. I'm the president of WESAC, West Side Against Crack. I live in Manhattan. I live in North Chelsea. And the organization was formed strictly and mostly to fight drugs, crack, crime on the Upper West Side.
What have you accomplished?
What we've done is organize the neighborhood, organize the community, brought in the guardian angels, and cleaned it up.
How have you cleaned it up? Are you sure that you've gotten rid of the crack dealers? Are you sure? Have the police told you the numbers that they
No,
arrested?
we have not. We have
You
not
got yours
cleaned
with
up
them?
the neighborhood.
That looks about the size of your bladder.
No more. We haven't cleaned up the neighborhood. It's a continuous fight. We've been in business for 6 months, and in those 6 months, the turnaround has been close to 100%. I've lived in the neighborhood for 5 years, and I was told that for the past 18 years, nothing could be done. Up and down 8th Avenue, between 23rd Street and the post office, oozing with crime, oozing with dealers, oozing with crack, with all sorts of forms of this degenerate business. That couldn't be cleaned.
All right.
We cleaned it.
All right. How about you, sir?
Well, I think that we need law and order to deal with drugs.
I
And we
know
should
you.
start.
Aren't you from WBAI?
Yes, and I think
All
we
right.
should start. My name is Paul. We should start with going after the people who are bringing it in. And Senator John Kerry's committee in the Senate had the Contras from Nicaragua pointing at each other, blaming each other for it. We have John Hull in Costa Rica, an American CIA agent who has the airstrip. And we know for a fact that the CIA, in the planes that went down with the guns, came up loaded with cocaine to the amount of 1 ton a week for years. And that's how they pay for the Contra war illegally. The people who commit the crimes are in the highest levels of the government. How come Reagan, Meese, and Bush aren't going to jail? Bush was head of the South Florida Task Force in Miami that was supposed to be dealing with drugs. Yet we have witnesses who saw custom agents unloading cocaine off of planes and loading guns on for the Contras. It's a fact. And as far as Curtis, I'd like to know why on the Lower East Side you worked with Emil Braun, Angels in Dirty Places, Emil Braun, who uses crackheads to go into his buildings and force people out so he can raise the rent to $1,500 a month. It's
Go
a
ahead and
common
answer it, Curtis.
plan.
Let Curtis
Guys like you would love the Lower East Side to remain the drug center of Manhattan. You'd love that, right?
Well, why'd you work for Braun?
Because
Emil
we'll
Braun?
work with any man, woman, and child that's
Even
ready
if
to
he's a
roll
crack
up their
dealer?
sleeves.
Even if he's a crack dealer?
Don't give me this crack dealer business.
come he
Look at
hires
yourself.
those?
Are you a dope head? You smoke dope? Do you smoke dope? Answer the
You're
question.
telling me that landlords don't push crack?
You like
Do
Ronald
landlords
Reagan
push crack
and
and put
Bush?
crackheads into apartments to get rid of people? You're telling me that
Look,
doesn't happen
buddy,
in New York
I've
City?
buried 4 people in the battle against
Why
drugs
don't you answer
to
my
put
question?
guys like you out of business.
Why do you work
You
for
point
landlords?
fingers at the government.
Why do you work for the landlords? Why do you support George Bush, the guy who was in
What do
charge
you mean
of the
support
Miami?
George Bush? Let me tell you something. Jesse
George
Jackson,
Bush
right?
brought the drugs into the
Jesse
country.
Jackson, the great liberal, said mandatory drug testing.
But George
Why?
Bush was in a position to do
Why?
something. What did he
No,
do?
because he's in the inner
Bush
city.
didn't do
he
anything.
deals with
He let
blacks
it
and
come in.
Hispanics who are getting killed.
George Bush knew
Not
it was
white
coming in.
intellectual trash like you who don't know about the inner city.
Bush knew.
Enough of your crap.
Hey,
Go ahead.
here's your drug rally. Here's your drug rally. Is that the answer, smoking a joint? I'd like to ask the people on the panel, besides Curtis, you got any kids?
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah.
3 teenage daughters.
Yeah? What are they, smoking dope?
Oh, they're smoking cigarettes, unfortunately.
Are they?
One of them has admitted to me. That was
All right, let me
before
just-
she was 13.
Let me have my say now, all right? Because I was biting my tongue back there with all your filthy garbage, all right? I started using drugs when I was 13 years old, all right? When I'm 29 years old, I stopped, all right? I started with smoking pot.
You didn't start with cigarettes and then to booze and then to...
Look, the issue here is drugs, all right? I know where it gets
tobacco
you.
and alcohol
Hell,
are not
hell,
drugs, right?
The only place it's going to get you is jails, institutions,
That's
and
because
death.
of the
That's
law.
because they're
That's
illegal.
That's because of the
That's
laws.
it.
Because they're
The
illegal.
barbaric laws of
That's
America
it.
in 1988.
What happened to you? What happened to you? What did it do to your life?
All right. I wound up going to Betty Ford because they thought they had the quick answers. But where I got the real help was Phoenix House. All right, going through long-term treatment. All right? And I know where it gets you. And it's no fun. You know, instead of fighting up here, maybe you should be trying to help each other.
That's right.
That's
I
what
don't
we're doing.
advocate the use
Helping-
of drugs. I
Bull-
advocate freedom of...
Bullshit.
If
Your
someone wants
answer
to
is lay
destroy
back and
themselves,
smoke a
let
joint.
them... And they're not going to destroy
Not at
anyone
all.
else in the
Not
process.
at all.
Let them be destroyed.
That's the answer, have a smoke out?
No. We don't want children to smoke. We don't want children to take crack.
Sure.
We don't want kids to take
children.
heroin.
We don't want children.
Concentrate on that. Adults in this country can do what the hell they want.
Look.
You can't stop them.
We don't want.
Then I can murder you when the
No,
show's
but you
over.
can smoke.
Because that's what I like to do.
We don't want children to drink either.
I'm from Stamford, Connecticut, and I'm the founder of an organization called the KICK Foundation, which stands for Keep It Clean Kids. And I just can't believe the ignorance of some of these statements. I mean, like Curtis, not quite to the extent that you guys, and God bless you for what you're doing, but I've been out on the streets. We wrote a song, and, you know, what you see on the streets is unbelievable. I can't believe what you guys are saying. Have you been out in any ghettos? Have you walked the streets? You know, we wrote a song called Kick the Crack, which we distributed about 3,000 copies through the school system, and it's helping kids out. You know, it's a good message. I just can't believe what I'm hearing.
Just forget it. You're not going to
I'm not going to give up.
You're not going to stop it.
I'm not going to give up.
I'm not either.
That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to give up.
I don't want you to give up.
He wants you to give up because he probably has a secret agenda of his own, ma'am.
Right. No, I'm not a politician like you.
I'd just like to say, I mean, if you have kids, right? I've grown up, and I'm like 18 only. I've grown up to know that it's wrong and it's illegal, and I've been hurt by my parents, teachers, everyone. How are you going to make it better by saying that it's okay and saying, well, not it's okay, but when you're this age, you can do it? I mean, already I have so many people that I know. I'm not going to say they're my friends, but I know so many people who drink, and they do drugs, and they drink, and then they have drugs and everything. But that's because, you know, I mean, drinking is accepted at least. If people, I mean, I can see people drink, and I say, okay, they can drink. But then if I see them take drugs, I say, that's illegal. You're going to get in really big trouble. You think little kids are going to grow up and say, since it's legal, I can do it now. I don't know if you can understand what I'm saying.
No,
but
I understand what you're saying,
if you're
really.
little and
I
you
don't
grow
think
up
that's
knowing
what's going to
it's
happen.
okay.
I don't think that's what's going to happen. You concentrate on the
Great
kids.
man.
Concentrate. I don't drink. What do you mean I can't stop drinking? Oh, you mean in general you can't stop it?
Hey, we'll be back. We'll be right back to come to our audience again. Stand by. Time that we have remaining, I want to hear from some of these folks. Go ahead, pal.
My name is Joseph McBratney, and I'd like to speak to these two very ignorant men right here. I think they're very ignorant. Yeah, no, I'm not looking through you. I'm looking right at you. Okay, I want to know if either one of you knows what it's like to be addicted to a controlled substance. Have you ever seen anything like a Narcotics Anonymous meeting where people spill their guts on being addicted because they want to help themselves? And you want to legalize it, and these people are never going to be able to break that addiction.
I went to Berkeley before you were born.
You're ignorant.
You went to where?
You
Berkeley.
are very, I don't care where you went.
That explains a lot of your
Let me
problems.
tell you what it explains.
Have you ever been to an AA meeting?
Oh, plenty of them.
People alcoholics.
I'm not an alcoholic,
okay?
but I go to
So why make it worse and add this liquor? With the liquor, why add drugs to it? Why?
Because
why
you can't
make it
stop
worse?
it. You idiot, you can't stop it. That's
Don't
why.
call him an idiot.
You're an idiot.
He's made more sense than you ever thought of. You don't know what you're talking about. Let me talk to that gentleman behind you. Go ahead, sir. Stand up here.
All right. I'm poor. I'm Puerto Rican. I live on the Lower East Side. I've been detoxed twice for addiction to hard drugs. I'm for legalizing everything. I'm for legalizing everything because what got me away from hard drugs was getting involved with some good hippies who were doing some other who told me that you are a cool person, you're a decent person, but you can't be part of our scene.
Well, I want to tell you one thing.
I
want to tell you one thing. I want to tell you one thing. The student loan you got to go to the beauty shop didn't work.
Why do you want to legalize the drugs so you won't get caught anymore?
He's talking.
Why do you want to legalize the drugs now? So you won't get arrested anymore?
Exactly. So that people who are 18, 19 years old won't go to jail before they have a chance to involve themselves in some other scene. You want to put guys in jail for 20 years in the 90s.
I want to put them in for life if they sell it. For life.
If we follow their line of logic, two people in the public square publicly fornicating, hey, they're not hurting anybody, right? Let's let them do it. We don't let them do it in America, and we're not going to let our kids become prisoners of drugs.
Your people got killed because drugs are illegal. That's why they got killed.
Curtis, I'm not for letting people do it in my living room. I'm not for people letting people do it in my building. I'm for getting my friends together and say, hey, You can do it. You got a right to do it. You don't have a right to do it in my living room, in my building, or in my neighborhood.
It ain't working, folks, but I'll tell you something that's working. Out here, out in America, we've got to get together. We got to forget about depending only on the police, about depending on the government, all right? It hasn't worked so far, all right? We are the government. When the hell are we going to realize it and do something about it? Get 'em!